St. Giles is a small parish church that sits on a patch of pleasantly shaded land in the village of Stoke Poges, Buckinghamshire, 25 miles west of London. There has been a house of worship on this site since Saxon times. The oldest part of the church building, its rough-hewn stone tower, dates from the period of the Norman conquest. The place is also holy ground for literati of a certain age and inclination. It was at St. Giles in 1742 that Thomas Gray conceived Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, a meditation on death and bereavement that was once among the most celebrated poems in the English language, a fixture of syllabi until tastes swung to less orotund verse. Today, Gray himself is in the churchyard, in a grave marked by an altar-shaped tombstone that sits just outside a chapel window on the building's east facade. St. Giles is a lovely place, tranquil and picturesque, an ideal spot for a rest, eternal or merely momentary. If you find yourself there on a mild evening, you will take in a setting little different from the one immortalized by Gray. Now fades the glimmering landscape on the site, and all the air a solemn stillness holds, save where the beetle wheels his droning flight and drowsy tinklings lull the distant folds. My visit to St. Giles came in the spring, on a day of warm breezes and pouring sunshine. The panorama, churchyard greenery, surrounding countryside, was unreasonably pretty, and as I strolled the long path that snakes through St. Giles grounds, the birds were singing so wildly that I punched up the voice memos app on my iPhone and made a recording. Looming about 100 yards to the south of the church was the Manor House, a 16th-century estate once owned by Queen Elizabeth I, and later by Sir Thomas Penn, the son of William Penn, Pennsylvania's founder. For an American who had spent little time in the leafy home counties, but many hours reading 19th-century novels and watching costume drama adaptations of those novels, the scenery was exotic but familiar. I half expected to see Dame Maggie Smith bustling out of the church in period dress. The person who materialized instead was St. Giles' minister, Reverend Harry Latham. With a couple of adjustments to his wardrobe, Latham himself might have stepped from the pages of Jane Austen. He was the picture of the handsome country vicar. He was perhaps 45 years old, but he had the unlined face and full hairline of a younger man. He wore wire-rimmed glasses and a pinstriped shirt with a clerical collar. There was a faint musical lilt when he spoke, and his manner was soothing. Latham has a second pulpit about a mile up the road at St. Giles' sister church, St. Andrew's, where the congregation is younger and the services more informal, with sermons augmented by guitars and drums and sing-alongs. It is easy to picture Latham in either role, intoning the Beatitudes beneath St. Giles' medieval vaults, or strumming an acoustic on the altar at St. Andrew's, his feet tapping along in open-toed sandals. I had phoned a few months earlier to arrange a meeting, and followed up with emails, including one on the evening before my arrival. But as I faced Latham that afternoon in the churchyard, it was apparent that he had no idea who I was or what I could be doing there. I watched him take me in, cap to sneakers, registering the facts of the case. I was a stranger. My accent was American. I was clearly seeking neither pastoral care nor communion with the ghost of Thomas Gray. He came to the obvious conclusion. "You're looking for the bicycle window," Latham said. The bicycle is a definitively 19th-century thing. It was the product of hard science and machine-age engineering, of mass production and global trade. It was a creation of Victorian commercial culture, blown up big and spread wide by billboards and newspaper advertisements and popular songs. The bicycle stood for modernity and for modernism. Lady Progress was the mascot of the first periodical devoted to cycling, Le Vélocipède Illustré, published in Paris beginning in 1869. Drawings that appeared above the magazine's masthead depicted a female cyclist in a heroic pose, leaving dust in her wake as she streamed forward on two wheels, clutching a banner with a headlamp lighting the way. The image winked at Delacroix's Liberty Leading the People, while linking the bicycle to the hallmarks of changing times, women's liberation, new technology, speed, freedom. Decades later, Picasso, Duchamp, and other artists and writers still enshrined the bicycle as an emblem of the avant-garde.